Yeah, we clean this shop like every other day. And this thing still fights and fights and fights. But we're chipping along. You guys want to talk about what I've been doing? So a lot of the 4runner guys, they talk about these tailgates and these window switches and all this electrical stuff in here. And I'm not a Toyota guy, but I had to figure it out because that stuff wasn't working right. And the customer wanted to move some window switches because these were broken and not working right. And so I rolled up my sleeves and dove in and found out the hard way, like some of you guys probably know. Toyota wiring is just a little bit different than everything else. So before I finish all these systems up and final mount everything, I'll go ahead and run you guys through on what I've been doing and what I got going on here. So I guess I'll start back here at the tailgate. The way we're set up now is lock and unlock works no matter what. Now normally you couldn't unlock this with the window in the up position. If the window wasn't parked all the way at the bottom, the mechanics of this won't allow you to unlock it. And because of that, there was a bunch of bending and binding and whatever. And the bottom line is that no matter what anything does up here, I want all of these systems to just do what I want. When I push a button, I want something to happen. When I pull a lever, I want it to do something. When I pull a handle, I want it to do something. I don't care where the window is, where the windshield wiper on the top is. I don't care where any of that crap is, because I understand it, but I wanted to do away with it. So now this works on its own. I modified the mechanism a little bit, pulled the safety rod out, so that comes up. Tailgate opens just fine. Ready to put the glass in. So the other thing that I did is in here we're going to leave this one disconnected, which is the indicator for the dash for whether this is locked or unlocked, because the unintended byproduct of taking that rod out of there is that this thing likes to just on its own jiggle back into the locked position. And so when you leave it up here like this, it'll naturally kind of want to fall back into place, which is completely fine, but we don't want the light, nor do we need the light really anymore. So I got rid of that. Our extra wires in here I talked about the other day were for defrost, for rear defrost, and apparently some point in time this vehicle got the rear glass blasted out of it, because this rear glass that was in it doesn't have any of the defrosters on it. So that's why those wires got bundled up over here. Okay, the harness got resecured and fixed up and put back into place, and I just need to put a little strap on there and then find a body plug to put body plug in there, and that'll be happy pappy. So the way the rest of this system works is if the top is off, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to pull these little pins out, okay? And this is the locator pins on each side for the top, so that you can set the top into place and it'll sit there, and then you put the bolts in there. Well, underneath that there is this guy right here. When you put the bolt in, it pushes the switch down and then sends ground signal through there, so that when you take your top off, nobody can operate anything back here, okay? Well, I did away with that. So that's jumpered back here, so it sends a constant ground. So no matter whether the top's on or off, no matter whether these are on or off, when we push a button, when we pull a lever, something's going to happen back here. Okay, so that got taken care of there. As part of this power window system and the power window system for the doors, there's a relay control box. Okay, and they don't just have a relay into the fuse plug or into a wiring and secured to the side. It's actually a relay box, and that relay box for the tailgate is right here. Okay, so the other thing that happens is when you put the top on, you plug the pigtail in for the top, and it's right here. And then in the windshield wiper, there's a park sensor for the windshield wiper. So if the windshield wiper is in operation and it's down, it's going to be on the glass. Toyota set this up to where if that's the case, it kills the power and ground to the tailgate, so nothing in the tailgate will operate until you get the windshield wiper put back into position up onto the top, and then you can move the window and open the tailgate and do all of that stuff. But obviously you can see the complexity of the situation. We don't care about the windshield wiper park, and the little sensor always goes out, and people have a lot of problems with that stuff. So if you get the wiring diagram and you get down to the nitty gritty, and shout out to 4crawler.com and the YouTube channel, he does a lot of this documentation on stuff. If you get into this one and you find pin number 13, you just basically you just trim 13 out of it, and that's the ground signal that gets sent from the windshield wiper park sensor down through here into the relay module to tell the relay module to go ahead and not work. So if you cut that wire and take that ground signal out of the relay box, then the relay box will never see ground, and it will never close off the system no matter what the windshield wiper is doing. So right now, even with key off and everything else, we should have action. Because the other thing I did was bypass this, because this is all broken and busted and gnarly and nasty, and we put a marine trim switch in. So now that's your window operation. Yes, security issue, because anybody can walk up to the rig and push the button and the window will work. And we did away with that with a key fob. You can probably hear it. You click. There's a relay box hidden under there that turns all the grounds off for the whole truck. So click, no power, no worky, no worky, no worky, no worky. Okay, so that takes care of this system back here. We got rid of that switch, we got rid of the ground up there, got rid of the light indicator for the dash. We made the lock work the way we want the lock to work. Handle operates correctly. We're ready to plug the top back into it, and the relay box for the rear doesn't care whether the top's on, off, whether these plugs are in, out, whatever you do over there. Everything works all the time. Okay. So then we go up here to the front doors, and I told you the other day that the customer wanted to relocate the switches from the door over to the center area so that all of the controls for the windows, the tailgate, the doors, all that stuff is centrally located over here. Normally it's not a big deal. So I ordered in the normal 5-pole reversible switches to have the light, so that when you turn the headlights on, the light on the switch comes on, up, down, 5-pole. Okay, that's usually what you would use for doing this kind of stuff. Well, I pulled all this stuff apart, and Toyota, they wanted to save some money on these switches, and they wanted to save some money on relays. Here's the control box, the relay box for the doors. Okay, so what they did is, if you get over into the wiring harness, I can kind of show you. So in the Toyota systems, this is the window switch itself, okay, for the door, and you can see this right here comes down and over and up, goes across and comes down here. That's the ground, okay, and you can see that inside of the switch, inside of the actual switch for the door panel, that this is the, when you pull up or down, see this is down, flicks it over here, and this is up, flicks it over here. You can see that when they're in their park position, they're grounded fully, okay. And here's this is a 7-pole, and you can see here that you've got positive, and then here's your negative. So you can see your connections. Well, you notice the switch part of this switch is floating in dead space, which means that the switch itself is not negatively charged. It's not grounded at all times. The only time that you can see a ground or a positive is when you actually flick the switch, depending on how you set this switch up. So everything's in dead space until you go up, it makes a positive and negative, and then you go down, it makes a positive and negative. Well, with this setup being the way it is, you can't just simply replace it with one of these, because this is hard grounded. You have to get rid of this switch out of the system one way or the other. Racked my brain on it, went back and forth and figured out, well, the way we're going to have to do this is we're going to have to do 7 poles. So you've got a positive and negative for the light. So the light's going to come on when you turn the switch on. And then you need to do positive and negative at the motor, right? So you go positive and negative in, that's up, and then positive and negative switch is down, okay? So on the switch, the way we wire it, a negative in, positive in on the orange. And then what this is going to do is essentially reverses one side, which is isolated from the LED. So this little X is the LED, little X is the LED. We're going to isolate the right hand side of the switch, and we're going to reverse its polarity and feed this positive number 5 with a negative. So when we flick this switch over, it's going to go positive, negative, and we flick this switch over, we'll reverse those wires the other way, and it'll go negative, positive. So when you go up, it'll go up, down, it'll go down. So that takes care of that. And then we have the extra negative coming in for the back side of the LED lights. LED lights work with positive and negative, and an incandescent light, it doesn't matter whether you flip those around, as long as it sees a positive and a negative, the incandescent light will come on. With the LEDs, that's not the case. Some of the new ones they've developed and started making them reversible, like the last batch I got in was actually reversible bulbs. But most of these and switches and stuff like that have a light in them, you have to feed positive to what the positive terminal is and negative, vice versa. Otherwise, it may throw the polarity in the direction that you want it to, but the LED light and the switch won't come on. So I wanted these switches to be able to illuminate. These ones right here, when you turn the headlights on. Now these ones, the factory ones, are probably still going to come on, but the aftermarket switches are not going to have any light until you actually hit the button. And the reason that is because they don't make like a 9-pole with another light coming into it. And because Toyota did this way and negative the switches inside of the switch, I can't do both from out here. I can only do one. I can switch it with the light turned on, or I can turn the light on all the time and have the switch not work. So everything's going to function correctly, but that's just how it ended up working. So 7-pole switches, factory buttons, and that'll control the tailgate and the side doors. The lockout switch and the power door locks will still be operated from the driver's side door panel. Following? Yeah. It's for that guy that was like, oh, Toyotas are the most reliable windows I've ever had. Yeah, right. Anyway, so how did we make that work? So we had to run a new pigtail in here. So I've been running pigtails and wiring harnesses all day, the last couple of days. So this is a positive and negative from one side, positive and negative from the other. And then in this bundle, red is for right, nothing is for left. So those run through the dash, up with the new harness, come out through the door jamb, secured in the door jamb, and they come down to the motor, and they're secured in here to the motor. So I had to run a harness there for the power windows, harness there for the power windows. I still need to pull a constant positive into the switch pad, and a switch to negative from the system. I believe it's in here, and then all this stuff will power up 100% of the time, as long as the isolator box is turned on. Okay. The last part of this is that the rear switch on the outside, which is where we're going to control the windows up and down all the time, is different than the switches in the door panel by just a little bit. So what we have to do is we have to rewire the 7-pole for a 6-pole setup, a single pole, single throw. So I just got to move some of these jumper wires here on the back of it, because all we need to do for the rear is send negative to up, negative to down. We don't need to reverse the polarity, because the polarity gets reversed inside of that relay box over there that we were talking about, and we set that up the way we want it to work, and it's functioning and operating correctly. So that's all good. I just got to feed constant power up here to the switches to turn everything on. Cool. Stereo, it's in, wired. I went through all the factory stuff and got me plugged into the factory radio. Got all this stuff, it's called rough wired, rough wired, and then tidied up and finished. got the harness in and wired, and then we plugged it into the head unit, and the head unit comes on with the key. Cool. It's our radio antenna. So that's the aftermarket radio antenna, and then it runs down through the dash. I've just got a chassis ground it. It's already powered up. It's already ready to be plugged in, and then I just got to stick it to the dash. So that thing's pretty much done, ready to go. Stereo system, so it's going to be a completely amplified system. So it's Memphis audio through the whole truck. So I'm going to put a 4-channel amp in over here to run the 6-speaker setup, and then we're going to put a hidden enclosed subwoofer back here. So I started running all the wires for that stuff. It takes heavy gauge power wire, grounds, and then some junction blocks, and then I'm running new aftermarket speaker wires so that we can not have to use the factory junk. So I've got it pretty much run through the truck. Power wire runs over here, main power feed. This speaker wire, I need to get just a little bit more because I was originally going to run it like this, I think, down the console and then under the seats. But I think to clean it up means I got the seats out. I'm just going to follow the factory wiring everywhere I can follow the factory wiring. So I need about another 10 foot of this speaker wire. And then everything will be hidden along the factory wiring harness, and you won't see anything aftermarket when you flip the seats up or in between here or any of that stuff. Normally you could hide it with carpet, but you guys can see that I don't have the ability to hide anything underneath the carpet because I bedlined everything. So it's all going to be open bare floor so they can wash it out. So I want to make sure that this gets tidied and run where it needs to. So it's going to be Memphis audio here. I think there are 4 inchers, 5 1/4 back there with a coaxial and a crossover, all powered by a 4-channel Memphis audio amp. And then we'll run a mini sub back there underneath the plastics. Shifter console stuff is ready to pretty much be installed. I decided to make a trim on the factory console. This is where the ECT button usually resides. And now with this, we're going to go ahead and be able to stick this in here and get it resecured to where it was from the factory. And then that'll go around the shifter bezels, and then I'm going to put the overdrive button right up in here so that you can reach down from here, click, click, and that'll turn your overdrive on and off. And then means this backside's trimmed. I'm going to clean up the plate, insulate it, and all that. And then these 2 bolts down here are going to be the bolts that I use to secure this box. Turn this up, and then everything should be pretty well tidied. Just put a little piece of wire loom on that and make sure everything's covered and tidied up, and that should take care of all that. When the plate comes out, I'll measure for the shifter rod and get the shifter rod cut and installed. And then RCAs for the system and remote wire for the system are running on this side. And once I get the amps in, then I can finish wire all that and get my grounds secured and finish up the audio system. So, head unit's ready to drop in. You know, it's kind of one of those why we start, stop things. I don't care how long this video is. You guys watch it or you don't watch it, whatever. The stereo that I pulled out, it's got these factory Toyota brackets on them. Of course, they're not available. You can get them on Etsy, and then the guy sells them on eBay too, but they're like 50, 60 bucks. And so I dug around on the Amazonian and found a guy who was like, no, I used this kit for my 4runner, and he had a picture of it. So I ordered that in because I couldn't actually put the stereo in and mount it. I could just dry fit it. So there's our trim piece of console. May or may not use that somewhere later. Oh boy. Okay. So that takes care of stereo wiring, windows, tailgate, head unit, camera, backup camera. So this is like an upgraded HDR style camera, and I don't know that it's going to work with the head unit because it has an AV plug on it and not an RCA plug on it. And when you look at the back of the head unit, and I've already looked through the instructions to see, they're right there. It says camera, yellow, that's an RCA. This one says audio video in. So I don't know that with this camera, if when you pull it into reverse, if it's actually going to turn on the head unit, or whether you're going to have to push the audio video button to make that camera work. I don't know that, so I'm going to test it to see and then decide whether we got to get a different camera or not. It'll work for the front. That'd be kind of cool. Put it on the front and you can just turn your front camera on. I know it'll work for that, but I don't know about that. I've looked for adapters for this, but that's, much like the rest of the crap that I've had to be dealing with. My brain's melted on all that and was like, I'll figure it out later. Then the last part of this is that I need to run a reverse wire from the tail light up here somewhere and plug into there, or find the reverse light up here and plug into the camera so that when you pull it on, the camera actually turns on. And then maybe put another switch or button in too so that you could manually turn it on if you wanted to manually turn it on. I don't know. But that's the last for the camera. Once I answer the question of whether it actually worked with this head unit or not, then I just got to run it to the back with the RCAs and secure it to the rear bumper. And put the rear bumper on. I'll be good to go. I'm going to put the toolbox on next because the suspension's done now. So core 4x4 shackles are in. I just need to lock the adjustment nut down. The hardware's in, torqued, done. Shocks are in, hardware's torqued, and it's ready for stickers. Drive lines are in, exhaust is in. Only thing left back here is brakes. I told you I'd do that last. So the sweeps and U-channels were not right. I actually didn't have the U-channels. It didn't come with the kit for the door seals and the sweeps. It was by itself, so I ordered that, and then the sweeps were wrong. The sweeps, I guess, are power window, non-power window. Non-power window has a wing window. Power windows are full. My bad. Ordered the right ones. Supposed to be here today. But I did put the door seals on both sides. Those look nice. And I got the U-channel in. And I was happy that after this whole project that I found every screw and nut and bolt and bracket and everything that went back in factory, except for that guy right there, because I had pulled this bracket out before I painted the door jamb, and apparently I decided that I didn't need to do that before I did that one. So that one's got a painted bolt in it, and this one's got a fancy bolt in it, but can't look at both sides of the truck at the same time. So whatever. Yeah. Seats ready to go back in. Testing's all but done. Let's see what else. I'm going to wait to put lights on until I get done polishing, and I'm not going to polish until I get the rest of what we were talking about done. This is pretty much done up here. I just got to reverse some polarity on this box and fix power steering line that I blew off, and then clean up my lines. Stereo fused together. There's a hot lead for it. Put the hood on, finish the fuse box, finish the dash. Savvy? Brakes, toolbox. Cool. Nothing else there. And then we'll do those pesky windows as soon as I can move this truck outside and it doesn't get mucked up by rain if it gets rained on. Okay. I think that covers it. Cruise control. Customer told me if it's a pain in the butt, don't worry about it, but I at least got the parts to do cruise control. And what they told me is I gotta find a spot to mount this sucker. If I hook it up to these two wires over here, say cruise control, and I should get cruise control. But if it's a pain in the butt, I'll leave it till somebody else deals with it, or I'll do it last with the last of the knick-knack stuff. But oh my gosh. All right, let's flip you around. The camera literally says 24 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know if you like these videos. Drop me a comment. Make sure you hit the like button if you're on the tubes. Make sure you hit the bell and the subscribes. It's been a long, tough road for me this year, and channel's still there, content's still coming, and I'm still working. So if you guys appreciate me like I appreciate you, show me below. Y'all take care.